Welcome to Business Spotlight. This morning, I've got with me Maurice Power. He is the CEO and founder of Apex Litigation Finance Limited. And I'm going to let him tell you what he does. So, Maurice, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for the opportunity, Garry. It's good to meet you and welcome the opportunity to explain who we are and what we do.
Great. So let's start with that then. Who are you?
Yeah.
What do you do? And how long have you been doing it?
Yeah. Okay. So we're what's known as a litigation funding business. If you have a dispute in business and you have to resort to legal recourse, it's expensive and it's fraught with risk. Not only do you carry your own costs, but if you're unsuccessful in the legal action, you also bear the other side's costs. So many businesses and individuals either can't afford to pursue meritorious claims or are wary of the financial risk of pursuing those claims. So either they walk away from the claim or they find alternative ways of financing that action. And that's where Apex steps in. We provide non-recourse litigation funding for claims that we believe have strong prospects of success. When I say non-recourse, that means that if the claim loses, there's nothing to repay. We don't loan money. We invest in other individuals or businesses' litigation. We're passive in that litigation. The claimant still controls the litigation, still instructs their law firm. All we do is effectively agree to fund some of their costs, either the legal costs and or the disbursements around that. So a claim comes in, we risk assess it. So we look at the prospects of success. We look at very importantly, we look at the defendant's ability to pay. Because ultimately this is a financial transaction for us. So we need to be confident that the defendant has the ability to pay. We agree a budget with the claimant and their legal representatives, and then we execute agreements, which allows the litigant or the claimant to pursue their litigation with Apex effectively supporting them with finance.
And I know you can't talk about probably individual cases, but could you give us an example of that kind of situation?
Yeah, I mean, I can give you two very good examples. Again, as you said, I can't name names or go into details of specific cases because of confidentiality. But one that's probably foremost in a lot of viewers' minds would be the recent problems with trying to make insurance claims on business interruption claims due to the COVID lockdown.
Yes.
Many insurers have stalled or refused to pay out on business interruption claims. And so businesses have had to resort into litigate to enforce their policies. Many firms can't afford that. Particularly, I mean, if the claim is over £200,000, simply just to instigate the claim at court, it costs £10,000. Forget legal advice and instructing solicitors and buying insurance to protect your position. So we've supported a lot of businesses with their business interruption claims.
Got it.
Another area where we are ideally suited is the insolvency market. When an insolvency practitioner, for example, is appointed liquidator of a business and they identify a potential claim within that business, either against one of the directors or maybe pursuing a debt against a debtor of that business. Invariably, there's never any assets within the business to allow them to fund that action. So the insolvency practitioner has a legal duty and an ethical duty to recover as many assets as possible for the creditors of that failed business. So third-party financing, litigation funding, is an ideal tool or service for an insolvency practitioner or liquidator to use to access or to pursue remedy for the failed business. So does that sort of give you an idea of how it works?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, when I was researching you beforehand, I saw that access to justice pops up quite a lot in that. As a phrase, what does that mean?
Well, quite simply, access to justice is actually quite expensive in the UK.
Yeah.
As you know, legal aid has effectively been terminated, so you have to fund it yourself, or a business has to fund it themselves. If you're an SME, do you want to spend hundreds of thousands of pounds pursuing a meritorious claim at the expense of actually supporting your own business, because that money has to come from somewhere.
Indeed.
These are hard times for individuals and businesses. Money is tight and money is important, and particularly if you're a growing business or a relatively young business, you need to use every penny within that business. So litigation funding allows you to use your assets where they should be used, which is to grow your business and support your business. And our funding, or a funder, can support the litigation. Yes, there's a cost to using a litigation funder, but we agree those costs at the front, at the start, and nothing is instigated without those costs being agreed. And like I said, if the case loses, there's nothing to pay. We lose our investment. So hopefully it's a win-win for everybody.
And I noticed as well, it's something that just piqued my curiosity, that you do talk about using artificial intelligence as well at the start of the process. What does that mean?
Well, we try to. Our business model is very much focused on providing funding to a high volume of low value cases or lower value cases.
Right.
If you look at the wider litigation funding market, the majority of litigation funders have multi-million pound funds to deploy into litigation, and they focus on providing that to large corporates that have claims that are worth tens or hundreds of millions of pounds, or they support what's known as group or collective actions. So things that have been in the press recently. There's a collective action against MasterCard. There's actions against Facebook and various other large entities that cost literally tens of millions of pounds to pursue, and many large funders fund those cases, which means that the majority of litigation, which is inherently smaller, doesn't get supported. So Apex was formed to provide that support. In order for us to review the volume of cases that we need to review, to identify the cases that we would like to support, we have several ways of doing that. One is the traditional funders' way is to effectively employ a lot of solicitors, ex-judges, barristers to review documents and to opine on those documents, and to opine on the cases that they believe are meritorious and worth pursuing. The majority of litigation funders only fund around 5% of the cases they review.
Right. Okay.
So that's quite an expensive way of rejecting cases. If you've got a very expensive lawyers and barristers reviewing documents. So for Apex focusing on lower value cases, we needed to find a cheaper way of having a first wash of reviewing cases that's cost effective. Otherwise, our model doesn't work.
Sure.
And the solution that we are developing is an AI-led solution. So and it currently doesn't do this. The information that we need is not currently available in the UK. The legal system in the UK is incredibly slow at publishing results and judgments. There's a lot of High Court data available, but the majority of cases settle outside of court, and so you don't have data on that. So we're building our own database, which will allow us to, as a new case comes in, effectively plug it into the machine, and the machine will identify cases that fit our case criteria.
Got it.
At the moment, it'd be true to say that we're using the AI as a negative selection tool.
Okay.
So it rejects cases.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we don't waste time reviewing cases that we would never review.
Sure.
So it does simple things like identify cases that are maybe in other jurisdictions that require too much money, or the balance between the funding requirement and the likely claim size is unbalanced. So it makes the case uncommercial for us to invest in.
Sure. Okay, so I mean, we didn't touch exactly on how long you've been in business, but
Okay.
from my research,
So we formed Apex in, or we incorporated the business in October 2018, and then we spent a year really putting all the building blocks in place. Some of that was by design, some of it wasn't. Unfortunately, dealing with UK banks, trying to open bank accounts is incredibly difficult. And if you have the audacity to put the word finance into your title, you're obviously a money launderer, and it becomes incredibly difficult opening a bank account.
Yeah.
But that aside, no, we opened the doors to new business in November 2019.
Mm-hmm.
So 4 months before the first lockdown
Mm.
for COVID. So that was an interesting time for us, and working through the lockdown and the COVID experience, we learned quite a lot about our business, and where we want to go as a business.
Mm.
So yeah, we've been trading properly since the end of 2019.
Mm. And when you reflect on all of your time in business, and we think about what makes businesses successful, there are so many failures of business in the UK. What are the keys, do you think, to running a successful business?
Well, I think people are the key. Surround yourself with good people,
Mm-hmm.
keep people motivated, ensure that everybody is focused on the same goals.
Right.
It's very easy for individuals within businesses to be focused on their own individual goals rather than the wider picture. So we're a small team. I know one of the questions you're going to ask me a bit later is what does the future hold for Apex? We're on the cusp now of scaling the business quite dramatically. So for us, identifying the right people and bringing in the right processes is important. I think tenacity, patience.
Mm.
Um, um, Certainly, you need to be motivated. And one of the things being very open. One of the things I've found about myself in the last 4 years running Apex, you try and identify what your skill sets are
Mm-hmm.
and what you're good at. And it's taken me quite some time to actually understand that I'm probably very good at solving problems.
Right.
My background is sales, and managing sales teams and managing very large national sales teams. Prior to forming Apex, I ended up actually being managing director of a law firm for 6 years, which
Mm. That's all.
was quite an experience. Being a non-lawyer managing a law firm was very interesting. Um, but in all those, even as a salesperson, a good salesperson, yes, they're selling their wares, but in order to sell their wares, they need to identify an issue or a problem with the customer, and convince that customer that your service or product
Mm.
satisfies or solves that problem. So yeah, I think I approach each day and each challenge as an opportunity to solve something.
Mm. There's two things that have come out of that make me curious. One is the surrounding yourself with great people is absolutely a fantastic piece of business advice. But when you do that as the CEO of your company, what are you looking for? Is it skill? Is it attitude? Is it something else? What is it that would tempt you to bring someone into the team?
Yeah, that's a very good question. I always lean towards attitude.
Right.
I think skills are certainly business skills are things that can be taught and learned, and can be managed.
Mm.
I think physical skills are slightly different.
Yes. Yeah.
You need physical attributes to be able to do certain things, but certainly white collar work. Um, you know, as long as the mindset's right, you can work with people to give them the skills they need. If their attitude is right, then and they're motivated to support the business and be part of the journey. Apex is on a journey, and that's important to us, that people that come into the business understand that and want to come on that journey with us.
And is that a CEO's gut instinct when you have somebody sitting in front of you? Do you use any tools? Do you have any kind of mental checklist that you run through when you're looking at someone thinking, I need to see an open mind, or I need to see something else? What's going on in there?
An inquisitive mind, very simple things. If people don't ask questions, they're not interested.
Yeah.
So if you're in an interview situation or a meeting situation and you're doing all the talking, um,
Mm.
then they're probably doing the right thing. They're probably getting you engaged.
Yeah.
And those are the sort of people I'm interested in. Those that are curious, that want to understand what's going on,
Hmm.
rather than me leading the conversation.
Great. And then the other thing that I find with the small businesses that I coach, that sometimes when we talk about vision or mission or culture in a business, it all seems a bit corporate and a bit kind of, perhaps American, and that sort of thing. So when you're setting the vision for Apex, how do you do that? What's the way that you create a vision that everybody wants to engage with and follow?
Well, for us, we're a new entrant into a relatively young market. Litigation funding hasn't been in the UK for very long,
Mm,
and we are, um, I suppose, pursuing a course that other businesses aren't, our peers aren't pursuing.
mm,
So we part of the challenge for us is education. We need to educate the market that there's an alternative, that what we do
yeah.
satisfies a need that they may have. So the vision for us is very much to establish Apex as the go-to litigation funder for a particular type of claim or a particular size of claim,
Yeah.
and to support the market in that respect. So for us, the mission is probably a bit simpler than other firms that are in a more competitive market.
A broader market. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So we're trying to plough a new furrow for litigation funding, and part of that process is education.
Mm, mm,
So yeah, uh, so getting everybody to understand what we're trying to do and how we're trying to grow the business, and yes, build the structure correctly for the business. As I mentioned before, we spent quite a bit of time before we opened the doors to business to getting the structure right,
mm,
and we've spent a lot of time over the last year reinforcing that, because we're about to embark on a big growth spurt. So
mm.
we
Tell me
need
a
to
bit
deal
more
with
about
that.
that. You said you were planning to scale up. I mean, how big could Apex become?
Well, we're looking to become we're looking to become the go-to provider of litigation funding for a certain size of claim in the market. Um, we are looking to grow the business tenfold over the next 12 months,
Hmm.
and if we're successful in doing that, then we will probably double it again in the following 12 months.
Mm,
So that means bringing in, I don't know, increasing the staff, the headcount maybe by 150% over
hmm.
the next 6 months. Our turnover considerably more. We've secured investment to do this, and we're working with a partner to do this. So again, it's learning different things. We're learning to work with another type of business,
Hmm.
and learning how to manage a sudden increase in volumes.
Mm. What do you think the biggest challenges you'll have to overcome in that, in such dramatic 10x growth? Where's the challenges going to be?
Well, the first challenge would be what we class as origination, which is generating enough inquiries.
Hmm.
So working with the market, the intermediaries, the key people or the key businesses that can feed our machine.
Hmm.
Then we need to have decent process in place to review those cases
Mm,
that come in. So we have a set criteria that the cases need to fit within. So if they don't, reject them very quickly. We need to
mm,
focus on cases that work for us, and then we need to convert them. And once we converted them, even more importantly, we need to then manage them, because legal process is not a straightforward process.
no.
We're not instructing the lawyers. We are a passive investor
Hmm.
in other people's litigation.
Yeah.
So, but we do monitor the progress of that litigation. We monitor the drawdowns, the money that's being drawn down to be invested or fund that litigation. And the ideal for us is for all cases to reach a point of settlement as quickly as possible.
Mm,
So how is the legal team working towards that end? Um,
mm. And internally, how important is pace and tempo? When you said you were building new processes, is that an important part of this, or is there always going to be an external factor that's going to produce a drag on your own process?
well, I think we need to drive that. Yes, the external forces will drag,
Mm,
because a lot of our monitoring going forward is reliant on the legal teams or the solicitors that are managing the cases providing us with information.
mm.
Um, and I'm going to do them all a disservice, and I apologise in advance if there's any solicitors or legal people listening to this. They're not the most communicative people in the world.
Yeah.
They work to certain criteria. They work to a clock, and they don't do things they don't have to do. So we need to drive that flow of information, and hopefully it becomes second nature. So we need monthly reports. We need to report to other entities about our progress.
Yeah.
So the onus is on us to drive that activity, to drive that interaction. If we relied on the solicitors or the clients to provide that information, we'd be waiting forever and a day.
And as speaking personally, when you're 10xing a company in the way that you've described, how does Maurice 10x himself in order to do that?
Maurice has to learn to delegate.
Right. Yeah.
And I hopefully I'm learning to do that. Forming a business, running a business, and being at the point of a business, a small business particularly, it's very personal. You're emotionally attached to the business, and then as you grow, you need to start letting go of some of those responsibilities and trusting the individuals that you have brought into the business to do that job. So my challenge is to allow that to happen, and that's maybe the learning that I need to do over the next 12 months.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes I say to my clients, when you and none of them are 10xing, by the way. There's a couple of people who want to sort of kind of double their profitability over the next 12 months. But I say to them, if you set yourself a goal that feels a bit scary, and you know that you're going to have to change as a human being in order to achieve it, then that probably is a great goal, because a lot of people just put to-do list items as goals. So yeah, I mean, that's a great target to have anyway.
Well, hopefully the process will drive me to do that.
Yeah.
Physically, I mean, just physically, I won't be able to do what the business needs to do over the next 12 months.
Yeah.
So a lot of the necessity will drive the change, but I need to allow that change to happen.
Yeah. Yeah. Really interesting. And thinking more generally about business, then, given your level of business experience, and if you're in an environment where you're seeing other people who are thinking about setting up a business, what kind of advice would you give to somebody who is setting up a business today, having been through what you've been through?
Do a lot of research to start with. We will see, we watch on television, we see podcasts of people that have turned hobbies or lifestyles into businesses. And that's lovely to do. If you see an opportunity, I'd say grab it, but be informed about what you're getting yourself into. As I mentioned before, when we set up Apex, we encountered problems we didn't expect to encounter. Just something simple like opening a bank account is actually quite frustrating. The banking system in the UK is incredibly poor at supporting small businesses. Or certainly the major banks in the UK. There's a lot of challenger banks now that are coming in that are making access a lot easier. But know your market, understand your market, set yourself realistic goals, surround yourself with good people and good support structure. It can be overwhelming sometimes, and having someone to bounce ideas off or to let off steam with is certainly helpful.
And for people who are planning to build a team and surround themselves with good people, what advice would you give in terms of employing people and getting the right team in place?
Well, I'm learning that, but I've managed very large teams in the past, and remote-based teams in the past. But within those, that was a large organisation where there was a structure around the recruitment. I would suggest that build that structure, identify very clearly the skill sets that you're looking for, or the type of people that you're looking for, more maybe than the skill sets. It's always I suppose low-hanging fruit is to maybe look to employ people that have come from competitors. That can bring benefit. It can also bring negativity, because they bring bad habits. They bring habits that they're used to that were acceptable in previous firms that may not be acceptable in yours, and that may be a reason why they're looking to move. So look more at the person rather than maybe the CV, if that makes sense.
Yeah. And that attitude thing that you mentioned before, and seeing people sitting in front of you with a very curious mind and an inquisitive attitude.
Yeah, it's difficult, isn't it? Because really, you want to certainly if you're a small business looking to grow, you want to surround yourself with entrepreneurial type individuals. people that want to come on that journey with you and can add value. That's a word I haven't used talking to you, but it's a word that dominates a lot of my conversations. The value concepts. Apex likes to believe that we add value to situations that individuals or businesses find themselves in. I want people around me that add value to our proposition, rather than just do the job. They add value to the business.
Fascinating. So before we finish, is there anything coming up with Apex? Anything that you'd like to share with the people who will be watching this that would be useful to them?
Well, I mean, as I mentioned before, we're scaling our business. We're looking to bring in new people, but for us that means we need to generate a lot more cases, and we need to support more individuals and more businesses that have disputes that really require legal recourse. So if anyone wants to reach out, if they have an issue, a piece of litigation that they're considering, and the barrier to actually pursuing that is a financial barrier, then reach out to Apex and have a look at what we're doing. There's opportunity with us.
Brilliant. Maurice, thank you again for spending some time with us today. I mean, fascinating story. I could have talked for a lot longer there about some of the stuff we were discussing. Very much appreciate your participation in Business Spotlight. Thanks for your time.
Good to meet you, Garry, and thanks for the opportunity.
Thanks.